There's a voice, and it shows up when you're sitting at home on another weekend and unable to go do something that you want to go do due to the fact that you can't find an aide or someone to come sit with your loved one while you go enjoy a normal night out. And the voice always comes around and says, who would want to do this? Who would want to be my friend? Who would want to date me and all of those things? Because anyone who chooses me chooses this life with me as well. Here's what you need to know about me before my dad moved in. I feel like I had done a lot of work on myself. What I mean by that is my confidence, who I am, what I bring to the table in a relationship, whether that be a romantic relationship or a friendship. And then I made the choice to move my dad in with me to become a full-time caregiver as well as working my full-time job. And I feel at some point the voice was winning, and not because I forgot who I was, but because I started to believe that the circumstances made me harder to choose. But here is the first thing that caregiving has taught me, and that is that I am still worth it. I am still worth being pursued in a relationship, even though I can't spontaneously go do things like I used to. I am still worth being a good friend. Somebody can still call me for support like they used to, and I am still able to get out and do things. I do make the time for my friends and for people who are important to me. And I think that's the biggest thing right now is you have to still put yourself first at times, and that's a difficult thing to do when you're caring for someone who has dementia, because they are what you encompass your whole life around. However, you still have to make sure that you are taking care of yourself. And I would like to talk about a situation that I saw happen yesterday in a caregiving forum, asking questions or making comments just to get some support. And this person was an anonymous participant and was talking about how basically they didn't want to live anymore. They were saying how they were just ready for it to be over for themselves, more or less their loved one, which I thought was just heartbreaking. So I think for me, it's just knowing that I still have to put myself first and make sure that I'm putting forth that effort to make time for myself. It is vitally important. Whether you have an aide that comes in for a few hours just so you can take a break to go to the grocery store, or just even have a minute to yourself. I feel a lot of times when we do have aides that come in, it's because we're just going to work. And then when we come home, there's still no break. Yes, going to work is a break, but not really. You're just shifting into your other temporary work identity. And then as soon as you come home, you're jumping right back into caregiving again. So you have to be able to take that break and do something that is truly just for you. I used to do that quite a bit, just because I loved being out in nature. And to me, being in nature is one of the best things that someone can do, even if it's just coming out in your backyard. This is my backyard. So if I'm having a bad day, just coming out here and just sitting, even for 5 minutes to catch a break, is relaxing. And I feel like now that I realize how valuable that kind of time is, I do look forward to the day when I do have that back. And not because I'm ready for this season to necessarily be over with, but I just now know what I want to do once I have my freedom back 100%, and how I'll never take that freedom and that time for granted ever again. Another thing caregiving has taught me is about my health. Watching my dad go through this and seeing this has really taught me, or shown me, that I don't want to put my children through this. I know it would be an act of love for my kids to take care of me in this manner, but to know what this has done to myself and my life, that's not what I want for my children. I don't want my kids to ever have to put their life on hold like this to take care of me. So I think that's why my health has become more important. I try to watch videos on dementia and maybe what they feel like the causes are, what I can do for optimal brain health, because I don't want my brain to go through this. I've made comments to my kids about what the alternatives in my mind would be should this happen to me, what I would want them to do, because I really don't want my kids' life to stop. I didn't put my kids onto this planet to take care of me their whole life. I want them to have their life and go enjoy their families. And as long as I'm a part of that somewhere, I don't necessarily have to live with them, but I would like to be close to them and know that they're still, including me in that part of their life. But when it comes to something like caregiving, it's not something that I would want my children to do full time. So whether that's cutting out sugar in my diet, making sure I get enough sleep, enough exercise, just trying to maintain my mental health in any way is important to me. And whatever I can do to keep my mind engaged and to keep my memory and my brain functioning and working properly is something I've become a little mildly obsessed about just because I don't want this for my kids. So in a weird way, it's taught me to realize that my life could be in someone else's hands, because it could be my children's hands. And although I want their guidance, I don't want their life to stop for me like that. And I think the last thing caregiving has taught me is that love is never a bad choice. In my last video, I talked about a little bit of my journey with my boyfriend, Robbie, and I really debated on whether or not to enter into a relationship once my dad moved in. We were just dating at the time and hanging out, so it wasn't a serious relationship or choice at that point. And when I moved my dad in, all these thoughts going through my head about, I don't think I would ever be able to balance this. I can't have a relationship with somebody and try to build something while I'm caregiving. I just don't see how this is going to fit into this picture. But over time, I changed my mind about that. And Robbie definitely helped me change my mind. He was showing up and was always consistent, like I talked about. So knowing that you're worth a relationship, you're worth loving. I know there's a lot of caregivers that are in relationships, and I'm sure this puts a huge strain on relationships and marriages doing things like this, because it takes so much time and attention away from focusing on each other. I think it's about being very mindful when you make this choice, and you have to be mindful about little things every day, making sure that you're appreciative of your partner. Make sure you're appreciative of yourself, not getting down on yourself. Maintaining those thoughts when they come into your head, that little voice on the shoulder that's always saying the negative. Well, you can't go anywhere because you don't have anybody you can't find a babysitter this weekend, or whatever you tell yourself. And for me, that is what I tell myself. I'm just like, well, can't go do that. And although some of those things that I say in my head are kind of true, I try to flip those around and try to make them about making the time, being mindful to make the time, and being choosy about the things that I can go do. Because I am important. And you still have to make that time for yourself. If you're a caregiver, you are important. You have to do what you need to do to feel like you still have a life, whatever that is, whether it's a hobby of some sort. Make the time every single week to go do something. And that is a surprising part for me in this season, is the fact that love showed up anyway, because you never know what kind of package it's going to come wrapped up in. So if you're single and doing this and you've decided not to try to date or have any kind of a relationship with anyone because you are caregiving. It'll show up when it's supposed to show up, but you have to put forth the effort and open that door for it to come walking through. If you just completely shut yourself down and stay at home and don't make the effort to get out, it slowly will consume you. I can see where people really fall into a bad hole of depression with this, because I know what happened to me. I was on antidepressants for a while, and I feel like I've done pretty well with that. But meditation, prayer, reading, there's things that I've tried to incorporate to make sure that I'm still staying mindful of how I'm feeling and what I'm thinking. So I feel that's super important. Um, but there's some people that have to have antidepressants, and I'm not recommending anything as far as anybody going off of meds or anything like that. That's my personal choice. I just felt like it was time to go off of those medications, and it's just a personal choice. I didn't want to feel like I was dependent on those. But love shows up anyway, and I'm very happy that it did, because I feel like I have a partner in this rather than going through it alone. I don't know what the voice is telling you inside of your head, that you're not enough, or that nobody's going to choose you, or that at this point you just want this to be so over with that you don't care if you live anymore or not. I want you to hear what caregiving taught me. You are still worth it, and you are enough, and you are worth making yourself a priority, no matter what that is. Looking into respite stays, trying to reach out to get help for somebody to come and sit with your loved one. You have to ask for help. You can't do it by yourself. Next week, I think I want to talk about the financial aspect of caregiving. So if you're new here, my name is Heather, and welcome to Empty Nest Interrupted, and I will see you in the next video.